All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the absolutely unbelievable true story of a young woman who went up against the most powerful man in America. Usually, when we think of the country's founding, we immediately picture the pursuit of liberty, right? Well, today, we are focusing on Ona Judge. She was a woman who literally had to seize that liberty for herself by escaping the household of none other than George Washington. I mean, right off the bat, consider this advertisement. It was published on the front page of the Philadelphia Gazette on May 24th, 1796. It reads, "Absconded from the household of the President of the United States, Ona Judge." Think about that for a second. The sitting President of the United States, George Washington, actually placed a newspaper bounty. He was offering $10 for the capture of a 20-year-old runaway. He even noted in there that she might try to pass as a free woman and escape by water. It's just wild. And what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between Washington's assumptions and Ona's actual reality. So in his letters, Washington genuinely claims she must have been lured away by a, quote, mentally unstable Frenchman. He literally could not wrap his head around why someone would willingly leave his household. But then you look at the reality of the situation. Ona had just found out she was going to be given away as a wedding present to Martha Washington's incredibly difficult granddaughter. So for Ona, running away wasn't the result of some manipulation. It was a desperate, calculated choice to take back her own freedom.
Section 1. The Escape. Slipping away from the president's house.
So how exactly did she pull this off? Well, Ona's daily duties basically meant she was by Martha Washington's side 24/7. But on Saturday, May 21st, 1796, she saw her chance. Step 1. She used a tiny window of unmonitored time while the Washingtons were eating dinner to just walk out the front door. Step 2. She immediately disappeared into Philadelphia's free black community. And finally, step 3, she covertly boarded a ship called the Nancy, which was piloted by Captain John Bowles, and she set sail for Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And this perfectly illustrates that she didn't do this alone. I mean, the secret underground network was absolutely crucial. You have Reverend Richard Allen, a prominent preacher, who also ran the chimney sweep business that the Washingtons used, and he was heavily involved in helping runaways. Then there's Captain John Bowles, who safely got her out of the city. And finally, the free black community of Portsmouth, who helped her find a place to stay and get work the second she arrived. You know, every single one of these people risked severe, severe punishment under the Fugitive Slave Act just to help her. Now, moving along the timeline, you can see how this escalates into a relentless, multi-year cat-and-mouse game orchestrated by the president himself. Because he didn't just let her go. Look at the span of years here. She escapes in May of 1796. By November, there is a highly coordinated trap set for her. And then even 3 years later, in 1799, literally months before Washington's death, they are still trying to kidnap her. He used the immense full weight of his office to try and force her back. Let's actually take a closer look at that trap from November 1796. Washington essentially misused government officials, specifically his Secretary of the Treasury and a Portsmouth customs officer named Joseph Whipple, to set this deceptive snare. So Whipple put out the word that he was hiring a domestic servant. When Ona showed up for the interview, Whipple started asking all these highly leading questions about her past and this supposed French boyfriend. Luckily, Ona was sharp. She saw right through the trap and realized the president had found her.
But Whipple totally failed to capture her, and so did the next guy they sent. A few years later, Martha Washington's nephew, Burwell Bassett Jr., actually tracked her down right to her house in New Hampshire. He tried to sweet-talk her, suggesting she could just come back and face no consequences. Her response? Absolutely powerful. She just looked at him and said, "I am free now and choose to remain so." When Bassett decided his next move was to just seize her by force, the locals actually tipped her off, and she vanished into thin air once again.
Section 2. The Price of Freedom. Life in New Hampshire. Now, it's important to understand that a free life was still profoundly difficult. She married a sailor named Jack Staines, and together they had 3 children. But because colonial society severely restricted any real opportunities for Black Americans, she had to endure extreme poverty and punishing physical labor just working as a domestic servant. And tragically, she outlived both her husband and her daughters, who passed away from illness. Yet, in freedom, she achieved things that were completely denied to her before. She learned to read and write, and she found this immense strength and solace in her Christian faith. She actively chose this grueling, difficult reality over the so-called comforts of being enslaved by the president.
In 1847, when she was in her 70s, she gave an interview to an abolitionist newspaper. They asked her a pretty heavy question. Did she ever regret her decision to run away, especially given how incredibly hard her life had been? Her reflection really just summarizes her unbreakable will. She simply said, "No, I am free and have I trust been made a child of God by the means." Her conviction never wavered, not even for a second.
So this brings us to a really pivotal question. How do we remember this history today? How exactly do we balance the legendary story of America's founding fathers with the stark reality of the people they enslaved, hunted, and oppressed? Section 3. Reclaiming the Legacy. Truth and Reconciliation. The crucial takeaway here is how this specific history informs our modern debates. Just consider Washington and Lee University. This institution is currently right in the middle of a massive reckoning. Faculty members, including Assistant Professor of Law Brandon Hesbrook, have been pushing petitions recently that demand the university drop both George Washington and Robert E. Lee from its name. They argue that true justice requires us to acknowledge the full scope of these men's actions.
So let's impartially unpack the historical facts driving this debate. On one side, proponents of keeping the name point out that Washington literally saved the school, which was then called Liberty Hall Academy, with a massive $20,000 gift. But on the other side, faculty petitioners point out that this immense wealth was built on the backs of over 300 enslaved people. Furthermore, Washington actively utilized his presidential power to aggressively hunt down fugitives like Ona Judge, and he's the one who signed the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 into law. The core of the debate really centers on how to reconcile his undeniable philanthropy with his actions as an enslaver.
And, this reckoning goes way beyond just changing names. As demographics shift, faculty proposals are advocating for actionable institutional goals. For example, they're pushing to increase student body diversity to 50% by 2030, just to accurately reflect the shifting demographics of the state. It's really about recognizing exactly how history has shaped our present moment and trying to chart a more equitable path forward. We're also seeing this reckoning manifest in our physical landscape. Take a look at how Ona Judge is being memorialized right now. At the President's House Memorial in Philadelphia, the names of the 9 enslaved people forced to live there are permanently carved in stone. And there's this really beautiful detail. There are bronze footsteps embedded in the floor, completely symbolizing Ona's brave escape. You can also find new historical markers in Mount Vernon and up in New Hampshire. So her incredible defiance is finally taking its rightful place in our historical memory. I want to leave you with this final lingering thought from Michael Cord. He's an attorney who fought incredibly hard for that Philadelphia memorial. He said, "There's nothing more productive than telling the truth about the sad past in order to lay the foundation for a happy future. When we evaluate the legacy of the Founding Fathers, understanding the fierce independence and the unbreakable will of individuals like Ona Judge doesn't diminish our understanding of history. It completes it. So what other truths from the past are we still waiting to uncover?" I really hope this explainer has given you a lot to think about.